Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever, and in the name of his exalted Christ, his great servant and Mahdi today, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and in the name of their student, their servant, their apostle, that messianic voice today, the great preacher of freedom, justice, and equality, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We greet you all with the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. I am Student Minister Rodney Muhammad here in the city of Philadelphia as a base for the Delaware Valley region. We are so thankful to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to be able to work as a student in the class that's really under the scholarship of God himself. And we thank Allah for a man who has given himself to be guided by God, to echo God's word to us today, even as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, you would hear the voice of God. And as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan prepared the audience in nearly 81 cities or better from New York City to prepare to hear the voice of God that he said would be the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But he was told to go head on. And as he went on, the messenger of Allah was certainly preparing this special servant of his, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, for a great day such as the one that we're in. And so I am thankful to the Honorable Louis Farrakhan and the Farrakhan family. And for the Muhammad family, these families laid a base in their suffering to see Islam in America today, even in the Western Hemisphere. We are thankful to them. We know that we are in a very difficult period for the whole of the human family. And regrettably, we should be aware that our difficulties are not necessarily over. We have learned from the minister, words from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that he once said, all who have lost their life in plagues are actually martyrs. Our hearts go out to folks that have lost their loved ones, lost people that were close to them. This scourge, the coronavirus, coined codenamed COVID-19, has certainly proven to be a scourge, not only in this country, but even abroad. But we're reminded, even as the preaching of the National Assistant to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that student minister there, the son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, student minister Ishmael Muhammad pointed out back last year, Jerusalem and the square, it was empty. The Pope sitting over the world of Christendom was preaching to an empty house. And Mecca, the center for 1.5 billion Muslims abroad even, the square in Mecca around the Kaaba was empty. Certainly God is trying to tell us something. And I hope that we weren't in such a rush to get back to the regular trafficking and the doing of things that we were normally trying to do. And we did not give great consideration to this time that we were in called shelter in place. We want to welcome you, our Facebook audience, to a live reopening of Mosque number 12. And every Sunday we'll be coming to you at 11 a.m. on Sunday. And so we hope that you will join us every Sunday to hear from our study of the life-giving teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and from his servant, a Messiah to the world today, the preacher of freedom, justice, and equality, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We ask you today to support us as well as we try to minister to our community here in the city of Philadelphia and throughout the Delaware Valley, right here at Mosque number 12. If you go to mosque12.org, that's mosque12.org, you can easily make a donation to help our work that we hope to bring you current on in the weeks coming. But thank you again for joining us, and we are certainly blessed to have you to be with us. You know, truth is never popular in a world that has falsehood as a foundation. Have you noticed that no prophet of God, no messenger of God, no saints or apostles, no wise sages representing God's truth have been received with popularity, at least while those truth bearers were among us? This 6,000-year period has proven to be the most difficult on the human family of the planet Earth. The Holy Quran even teaches us that the universe was created with truth. I was looking at words from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and I noticed here he said that in a nation where governments have responsibility to its people, that its criterion and yardstick was already given to us in the scripture. They wanted to know when they were hungry and they were not fed. When were you, Master, hungry and we did not feed? When were you in prison and we did not visit? When were you, Master, in need and we were not there to respond to your need? But Jesus gave a yardstick that inasmuch as thou hast done unto the least of these, thou hast done it also unto me. And so the strongest man in moral conduct, the strongest man in spiritual intuition and insight was identifying with the weakest in the land as a criterion and as a yardstick. Last week, we did not reopen because we wanted as much of the listening audience to hear again from the criterion from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that he delivered July 4th, 2020. And this July 4th address at that time, according to our knowledge, was delivered to nearly 1.8 million people in real time, but certainly more than that have seen it over this great period. In there, you heard him say, do not take their vaccine. Their history does not make them trustworthy. Do not take their vaccine, he said, because now the government actually has a policy for depopulation of the planet. We don't have great joy in bringing you information like this, but these things have been documented and they can be proven. I don't even think the government would deny it. But nevertheless, these vaccinations may prove to be a great menace on the world population in the months and weeks coming. We'll have more to talk about on that when it comes, but I wanted to bring up something that the minister had talked about. Look at these words that he said. In America, we have millions today who are homeless. In America, we have many more millions who are sick, imprisoned, impoverished, and weak. And it appears as though the conservative element of the country is moving away from the care of the poor, the weak, the helpless, and the children, and they're catering to the desires of those that have. But it is the poor and it is the weak who built the country. It is the poor and the weak who have fought, bled, and died to maintain America as a great nation. Now America is turning her back on the weak, and she's blaming the condition of the country on the poor. She's blaming it on the Black, on the Hispanic. In reality, the mismanagement of the great wealth of this nation and people of this country is the fault of those people who are at the top, the people who have held power, who have manipulated the masses of the people against the good of America and of the world. You remember when we bailed out banks for billions of dollars, and rich people who found themselves in great trouble came to the taxpayers for the bailout. But when it was time to look at the condition of the people that were weak in the land, that were deemed to be weaker, certainly financially, than those that we bailed out, we found that income inequality has widened tremendously since the time of that bailout. We found that the wealth gap has even widened since that time. Truth is just not popular. And if you go on, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan points out that we're better not even speak the truth, because if you speak the truth, somebody is going to get hurt. But truth is your best friend, because truth will give you a mirror to allow us to see ourselves and how far off we are from the standard of God. Somebody has to tell the truth. Somebody has to be willing to pay the price of the truth. Truth is more important than our little positions. Truth is more important than being a mayor or a police chief or a senator or a cardinal or a pope or an imam or the president of the United States. Truth is bigger than all of us. As I said before, and he points out here, the Holy Quran teaches us that Allah created the heavens and the earth with truth. This universe is sustained with truth. There is no position of power that can be sustained over any long period of time based on falsehood and injustice. What did we see in Oklahoma? What has mesmerized us? It's a wake-up call. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan is reminding us in the strongest and most cogent terms that we cannot afford to turn our back on truth or to dodge truth when it comes. It is our best friend. Truth has a way of making us stronger when we accept it. And the imbalance that is in our mind that has corrupted our thinking and is preventing us from the right perception of what we are in and how to get out of what we are in. Truth is the only psychology that will straighten up that mind and heal it. The prophets of God have given it their best try. The messengers of God have given it their best try. We believe we are now living in the time of the fulfillment of those ones. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the minister says, taught us that the way to stop, well, let me start here, where he talks about how a truth bearer really ends up unpopular. And many names are put on them, even as they accuse Jesus of doing the work of the devil. Imagine in a Christian land where Jesus' name is the sweetest sound to the ear of the believer in a Judeo-Christian society. Jesus was accused of doing the devil's work. But the minister said somebody's got to speak the truth. And the minister said somebody has to pay the price of truth. I believe that the man or woman that's willing to pay the price of truth is the one that should be speaking the truth. And that one that speaks that truth and willing to pay the price for the truth, our ears should be turned more toward those than turned toward others that speak against those ones that are bringing us a great truth today. The minister says, I have to stand and speak for the voiceless, whose leadership has often been quiet or weak in the face of an open enemy. Although I have been misrepresented by the media, here is a new opportunity to receive my message and judge it against the criterion of truth. Am I really an anti-Semite? Am I really a hater? Can these charges really be proven? When people disagree, an intelligent and a rational thing to do is to have dialogue. Perhaps through dialogue, differences can be proved to be a lie. Then I will retract my words. He said, if anything that I have said or written can be proven to be a lie, I will retract my words and apologize before the world. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that the way to stop backbiting and slander is to gather the parties together and allow them to present their charges and evidence to each other's face. Then we will know where the truth rests and where the lie rests. We are willing to sit and meet. Look at what he's saying. We are willing to sit and meet before the world and discuss our position. We recognize the ability of the American government and business community to help the Black community. The Nation of Islam, in turn, can help America solve its problems, but we cannot solve any problems by bowing down to falsehood. Truth is our best friend, and the truth can help America. And if the one that leads us in the Nation of Islam today is willing to pay the price for the truth and willing to speak the truth, despite those that may be against the truth, because in truth, anyone that calls the truth hate is someone who hates the truth. So that's not our subject today, but it's good to set the stage right about our leader and teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who has been called many disparaging names. Nevertheless, head and shoulders above all his qualities and characteristics is the capacity to love. And it is that capacity to love that gives him the strength to carry on with a program that we feel, and we will talk about in the weeks and months to come, will make the necessary kind of changes that we want. Today, the title, the subject that we hope to take up today is the Independence Day and the 21st century slave. We are thankful to Almighty God, Allah, for the great, the unequaled wisdom and the light that wisdom brings to shed upon the current realities of today. As brilliant and as intelligent as people are who are called to serve in government, called to serve in the courts, called to serve in the great institutions of this land. Yet with all that intelligence, and believe me, knowledge and intelligence is light, but that light does not seem to be resplendent or bright enough to put over the great unfolding problems in the land today. And so the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that that light has grown very dim and it's not casting enough light on today's problems. We believe that the light that Allah is putting through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the kind of light that's necessary to address our problems today. Independence Day. What happened? England set up colonies, and these colonies ultimately broke away from their motherland, and their countrymen came against one and the other. July 4th was the day. And on July 4th, we have slides for you that we want to bring before you. We hope to have them momentarily. So we thank you for being with us. And as we are before this great day of independence for the land that we live in, we want to explore this day because there's much talk about it. And of course, we all know about Frederick Douglass and his call about the 4th of July. But here were countrymen who were fighting against their own, that they may break away from them and set up a nation of their own. Can we feel it safe to say that demands came up and that these demands that they had could not be satisfied under the Crown of England? They could not be satisfied accepting those who populated the colonies as their own countrymen. So as Englishmen who came from England, they had certain demands, but those demands being unable to be satisfied as Englishmen caused them to see that the only way to get satisfaction was to set up a brand new nation. They wrote these words here in Philadelphia. We hold these truths to be self-evident. The history shows us that they were so steeped in the Bible and Quran, according to Thomas Jefferson, who was the writer of the Declaration of Independence, that he originally wrote, we hold these truths to be sacred. But Benjamin Franklin and some others felt that if we were going to be successful at having a separation of church and state, they wanted to take some of the language out that they felt pointed more to religion. And so they took out the word sacred and put the word self-evident. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We have to look at what they were going after, because they talked about a separation of powers and abolishment of government, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. America certainly started out one way, but she has to look at herself, because there was a principle that brought her into existence. And when your practice and principle are not in sync or synchronized one with the other, ultimately you sow the kind of seed that proves to bring about in your own kingdom that which came up at the genesis of this nation. We were not included. When I say we, Black people, they were not included. When I say they, I mean people of color, in what these men saw in the beginning. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan reminds us that they started with a limited vision. And that's important, because when people want to go back to how it was, and when you hear them want to go back to the Constitution, and they want to be on news networks lifting the founding fathers and that, and they're unhappy with the America that they see now, they want to go back to a limited vision. They don't want to go back to an expanded version of America, which is the reality of America today. America's current population profile looks nothing like what the founding fathers had envisioned in the beginning. If we could be respectful and humble to say that vision that the founding fathers had is in desperate need of renovation. It needs to be expanded now because the citizenship of America is far beyond what it was in 1776. I noticed that the writer of this Declaration of Independence, and you have to realize that these men were landowners. These men did not want to be taxed beyond their ability to have a voice in the affairs of their own life. We could say that they wanted to be self-determined, but those kind of ideas, those kind of demands, those kind of desires being pushed for and sought, of course, clashed with the desires of King George. And so ultimately, they sat down and they decided that they needed to separate away from their own countrymen, separate away from what was their own government. They felt oppressed, and so they wanted to separate from their own oppressor. Look what Thomas Jefferson said. He said, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. That's so interesting of what Jefferson has noticed, because the Declaration of Independence once came upon, and they all had to sign, so that when this document was presented to those who had ruled over them, they didn't ask for permission to separate. They made a declaration that there was to be a separation. I hope we understand this because we're in a land that stands on those kinds of principles, that when a government decides to be oppressive, totalitarian, when a government, in short, decides to be unjust, do you just suffer under it because evils are sufferable? Are we not a witness that evils are sufferable? People are suffering in this land right now in untold ways. Of course, they could continue to suffer, or they can decide to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they have grown accustomed to. The call for separation was the call of the colonies. They were already in the land. They just needed to separate from government and rule over what would have been their own countrymen. The original flag that was used during this period before this declaration, join or die, was a serpent. That's interesting. Before nationhood was realized, this serpent cut up in pieces representing different colonies at that time was certainly different from the flag of England. And by raising up a flag, you already had those who were ready to go against what was set up in the land by the English, and to be taxed without representation, to have their properties confiscated, to be policed by people who no longer saw them as their fellow countrymen, but saw them as their subjects. This certainly wasn't sitting right in the minds and the hearts of those in the colonies. Look at the flag once nationhood was realized that was designed for them. There's exactly 13 stars on that flag on the right with the red and white stripes, which each star representing a colony and ultimately a state. What's important to realize is that though these folks joined together, they wanted the right to be able to run their own territory, or better still, their own colony, or as it's today, their own state. So there's an official flag once nationhood was realized. This 1776 period is interesting because 17 is a number found in those early lessons of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, student enrollment. What is the population of the original nation in the wilderness of North America? And the answer was 17 million. 17 million of us. If it was actually 17 million in 1933, I am not sure, but nevertheless, 17 was a good coded number for us to see that the student enrollment has this number wrapped up in it as the population inside of these borders known today as the United States of America. But 17 is also the 17th surah of the Quran is called the Israelites. Isn't that interesting? And when you study the founding fathers, you'll see that the founding fathers were investing themselves greatly in the study of scripture. Even today, presidents are sworn in with the Bible. Congressional members are sworn in with the Bible. And as of late, we've had parties like Keith Ellison, the first we've known of publicly, to request a Holy Quran. And as a cry came out in the land about this request to use a Quran rather than a Bible, our brother doubled down and said, not only a Quran, but I want to use Thomas Jefferson's Quran. That was an educational moment in America, because obviously this man known to be one of the early presidents of the United States of America and the writer of the Declaration of Independence had a Holy Quran. And so from the Library of Congress, they did go and obtain this Quran so Keith Ellison could be sworn in at that time. Well, the 17th surah of the Holy Quran, called the Israelites, it seems that the founding fathers were trying to pattern this early and young nation after the nation of Israel. And so you'll see the creator or God mentioned in their documents of freedom. And this is something that we have to take note of, because even the Holy Quran in its construction, 2/3 of the Holy Quran deals with Moses. And of course, Moses' assignment was the deliverance of the children of Israel from their own captivity. There is so much in the early um, development of this country, and still so many secrets yet to be unveiled, because we should be taught. But one of the things that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad helped us to see, and certainly without his help, we could not see it, that not only that, but that the America is truly the house of Israel. Jesus, in instructing his disciples, it's interesting, he would not let them go and preach to all the world this gospel. The early stages of the gospel, Jesus directed those that were helping him, call the disciples, to not go the way of the Samaritan and not go out to other folks. But notice he said, go there and sup unto the lost sheep in the house of Israel. He didn't say go in Israel and that Israel is lost. He said the sheep are in the house of Israel and they are lost. We were reading online different things about this, and we noticed a writing where one said, after having read this, Genesis 15:13-14, and of course, Abraham is one of the prophets that's called the father of the righteous. Three major faiths flowing out from this one servant of God, Islam, the Christian faith, and Judaism, all recognizing Abraham. But this Christina Lord, having said, after reading this promise of God, that Abraham, your seed will be in bondage in a strange land amongst a strange people, and in that land where they are afflicted and suffer, will I deliver them. I will bring them out. I will come, the Lord says. He doesn't say, and a prophet will come or a wise sage will be raised up or something. He says, I will come. And as I come, I will then bring them out in this land, or from this land where there have been great affliction and suffering. So she said, I've read this. And after having read this, I said to myself, the only people I know who were enslaved for 400 years are American Blacks who were taken from Western Africa. History that says that Blacks who are now inhabitants of North America are actually the descendants of Abraham. Abraham will deliver America. God will deliver America, as he promised Abraham. We learned that Abraham was a Black man that lived some 5,000 years ago or better. And of course, Abraham is a righteous servant of God who has a great history of God, but he was so close to God in his time. He's called the friend of God. And those that pray don't pray without the mention of Abraham in many of the prayers represented in all faiths. Abraham is known as a righteous servant of the living God. And so this history squares with us that she doesn't know of anyone else that's been enslaved for 400 years. And of course, in Egypt, this is some of the oldest recorded history in the world to be found today. And there's no evidence of any servitude of any social group for 400 years or better in the land. And anyone that's been somewhere for 400 years or better, of course, you would have left signs. There'd be traces of your being there during that time. So this thing about Abraham and the seed of Abraham, we'll come back to it sometime. But we're just looking at the 4th of July and the strong connection between Israel, or the house of Israel, and these United States of America. You have to ask yourself, how could the sheep be lost? This is interesting, because this is a people who, once found, will have to be renamed, because when they are found, they're out of their names. This is a people who would be found in such a state that you can't just shake them and wake them up. They have to be brought back to life again. The Lord even says, I will search throughout the earth for them. But know that the genesis of this country has so many secrets that we are in the time where all hidden things are being made known. And we are thankful for the light of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because it is a great searchlight of truth. After this nation was established, of course, there was then a commission for an American seal. You have a picture before you of that seal. And what we found on it, they said the Bible played such an important role in the lives of young America that John Adams, that Thomas Jefferson, the second and third United States presidents, along with Benjamin Franklin, the three of them actually proposed that the U.S. seal should depict the parting of the Red Sea, the pillar of fire, and Pharaoh's drowning chariots. But instead, the official U.S. seal is the illustration of an eagle with 13 stars above its head, representing the original 13 colonies. Now, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, in the design of the original seal for this country, the pillar of fire in a cloud, expressive of the divine presence and command, that was also written of in the Bible as seen in a vision by Ezekiel. He said, is now a reality in America. I'm going to stop right there. Have you noticed that there have been vessels in the sky that have been seen repeatedly in such a way that they can't stop talking about it in the news? And of course, they're telling us these are UFOs, but they're only unidentifiable to those who it has not been made known to what these vessels are. But a pillar of fire coming down from a vessel to help the children of Israel in their escape from the rule of Pharaoh and his people is something that should be examined, pondered over, and looked at and turned over, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says of his word. Is this something that happened 4,000 years ago? Or is this something that is happening right now? As that one writer said, I don't know of anyone that has been in bondage like that for 400 years other than American Blacks, not Blacks anywhere. Why would a God have to say, I will search throughout the earth for them? Could it be that there are Black people all over the earth, but he's looking for Black people in a certain condition, a condition like we are in? For those that belong to the Masonic order, you know about Hiram that had the blueprint of the temple there in his head, and how 3 ruffians attacked him and he was struck 3 times, and the fatal blow was the blow to the head, which divested him of all his knowledge. And to hide their crime, they dragged him on a westerly course and laid him up in the north corner of the temple there in a shallow grave. We can see that these United States of America and the westerly course of the slave ships that brought us to America has laid us up in the north corner here in the continent of North America. And certainly the way we were reared in this land that we will go into, we have been divested of our knowledge, and we have been brought to a state even of moral, spiritual, and mental death. We are thankful to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and certainly to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for bringing such light to us today. Look what the minister says in the seal's design. The reason that Pharaoh was depicted with a sword in his hand is to symbolize America's pursuit of world domination by way of skilled machinations backed up by force. America has held a whole nation in captivity for over 400 years, even as Pharaoh did in the biblical history of Moses and the ancient Hebrews. And she has done so by the use of force and wicked machinations. The beam of light that was seen shining down on the face of Moses in the design for the original seal of this country is a sign that the light from God is now beaming down on one from among the ex-slaves. In that light is the guidance that can heal America. In that light is the modern Babylon and the modern Egypt. Will America be healed? The Honorable Louis Farrakhan asked the question. Will America be healed? Are we living in a time where the kind of light that is being brought can offer guidance for us all? Will we be blinded by other things that will keep us so spiritually blinded that we can't see this marvelous light that can help us to absolutely bring a healing to the land, rather than the continued suffering that you almost have to see? We don't have to go through as much if we could humble ourselves. We are thankful to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who called a 1,000,000-man march. And that day, October the 16th, 1995, standing there on the mall, right at the center of the political power, not only of this country, but even the world, the minister was unveiling secrets in the land by going over the designs that were found there on the mall, the designs found there in the city of Washington, D.C., that holds a lot of mysteries. And I remember news correspondents asking the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, why was he bothering to go through all of those things on such a great day where he called for 1 million Black men to meet him in Washington, D.C., and nearly 2 million came. And the minister politely answered them and said, it's to let the wise in America know that I know their secrets, because they have been made known to him. And so many of these things that you may consider that I'm going over irrelevant, because we have been reduced, brother and sister, to the point that we think a new bill in Congress can satisfy everything. We're made to think that just changing a policy, getting rid of this one and instituting that one, we're made to think that even just putting money and resources in certain areas is going to bring us the remedy and help to answer and bring satisfaction to where we are truly dissatisfied. But I can tell you that if the Honorable Elijah Muhammad showed us the math that dissatisfaction brings about a change, the 100% dissatisfaction that is on our planet is scheduled to bring about a 100% change. We believe that God has come. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said this to us. He said, but Allah God will not let any of us be blind today to the truth. This is why he came himself, to be sure there will not be any mistake made. Allah God makes for himself a messenger. Then Allah God guides the messenger himself. He does not leave the messenger to do all the guiding. That Allah God sends angels to see that his guidance is carried out like he taught the messenger to do. Well, I don't know about you, brothers and sisters, but that teaches me that everybody is under watch today. There can be no mistake. The way we were broke down and taken apart, and the way we were disassembled as a people, the original people of the earth, we have to look with great care to take what we call a moral and spiritual and even social autopsy, because a pathology report can help us to see not only that we're dead morally, not only that we're dead spiritually, not only that this has debilitated us from building the kind of social order that's needed to bring the levels of sanity to our own existence, where we're not killing each other at epidemic levels and proportions, where we are not generating $1.3 trillion every 365 days, and all that money is going in someone else's hands. Yet there's a great cry in the land that we need money. And someone could look at us as a social group and say, well, my God, you have it, but it's how you're spending it. It's how you're using your resources. The economic multiplier in the Black community, I believe, is less than 1. That means that the dollar doesn't even turn over 1 time in the Black community. So by the time, if you're employed, by the time you have your first coffee break, the dollar is gone from the community, because even as Malcolm X used to say, as far back as the Ballad of the Bullet, when you spend your money on the block that you live, in the area that you live, you're spending it with someone who, when the sun goes down, they're taking that money into another part of the town. Family, if you cut your vein open, the blood will certainly run out of your body. And since the blood is the life, when the blood runs out, your life runs out. How can we cut the economic vein open and let every dollar just bleed out of our community, and then want to see our communities healthy and thriving? We've got to think today to come out of the misery that you and I are in. I am so anxious to share with you more from what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan have shown us. But first, we must see that after seeing how this land came together, and I think it's always important, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, that in all thy getting, get history, for history is best qualified to reward our research. We can't continue to just engage in folly. We have very little time or no time for frivolous things and trivia. We have got to get engaged in a hurry, even as we see the window of time closing out. One of the words that we'll be talking about in the weeks to come is perception, because how we perceive things presents us with a set of actions that we find ourselves practicing as a habit. So the American seal, as the Honorable Louis Farrakhan points out, has no Black folks in it. The American seal has no Native Americans in it. The American seal has none of the Latino community in it, none of the Asian community in it. And so if we're populating America, but the seal of America, how they see the land, how they're sealing the land, it has a lot to do with how you and I are being seen and how we're going to be handled in the land. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan points out to us, because now we've lived in the land, America has gotten her freedom from the Crown of England. She's an independent country. She has waxed exceedingly rich over this 400-year period. But the truth is only now coming out of how America came about this great state of wealth that she finds herself in. And she doesn't want to really share with those that have helped her. I am sharing with you this next screen, which goes into July the 4th, 1930. July 4th, 1930 is the Nation of Islam's day of focus. So even as America celebrates the 4th of July in 1776, and that's 17, of course, as we said before, in the Nation of Islam, we recognize it in our student enrollment coming into a classroom under the scholarship of God. We recognize that the 17th surah of the Holy Quran is entitled the Israelites, and the founding fathers invested themselves in the study of God delivering the children of Israel, Pharaoh being brought down, the drowning of his chariots, and the taking of his military, and the might of his land, his power broken, that God would make himself known. Well, now some years have passed. And not only do we have the 17, but it was 1776. And the 76th surah of the Holy Quran is called the Man. And this is a man who attains to perfection. You know, when we read that a man attains to something, then it tells me he didn't start out like that. Then the question becomes, how was he able to attain to perfection if he wasn't perfect already? That's an interesting question. But first, July 4th, 1930 was the day that the teacher of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad stood up in these United States of America and declared our independence. Look what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan says on that day. But first, I want to unpack a couple of things. Did you know that in 1928 and 1929, that for the scientists of this world studying astronomy, of course, all that exists outside of Earth's atmosphere, there were only 8 planets. But in 1930, a 9th planet came out of the darkness. This 9th planet was named Pluto. The one thing about Pluto that we have learned is that Pluto travels at the same rate of speed that the other 8 planets travel at, which is 1,037 1/3 miles per hour. Pluto is 4,600,000,000 miles from the sun. Pluto, according to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, doesn't even get sunlight 24 hours a day. But yet, with the little light that it gets, Pluto is able to be up to speed with planets that have been out there trillions of years before she has come out into existence. Isn't it interesting that we were in such a destroyed state? And in the 76th surah of the Quran, it reads that surely a time came over man that he was nothing to speak of. Could that time be talking about the 400 years that we have been in existence over here? For many years, darker people abroad didn't even know that we were here. And for many of the years and centuries that we've been in these United States of America, no teacher was allowed to come to us to teach us anything about us different from what our captors and our jailers and our slave masters wanted us to know about themselves. You know, ourselves, pardon me, but you know, if you have amnesia, do you realize that when you wake up in a state of amnesia, you'll look at people that you don't know and ask the people that you don't know to tell you who you are? That's something like the state that we have been in this land. Everybody has been telling us about who we are, but we have not learned from a teacher to learn the truth about ourselves. How we started this talk off today was about truth and not falsehood. But if falsehood is at the base of the land, then falsehood is at the base of our own existence. And we need a teaching that shakes us at our very foundation. So 1930, a ninth planet rose out of the darkness. And in 1930, the declaration of a people that was seen as a nation are spiritually and morally rolling out of the gross darkness, the spiritual darkness that we found here in these United States of America, and how we have been handled. The 19, I noticed that the 19th surah of the Holy Quran is called Maryam. That's the Arabic for Mary, the mother of Jesus. And here we have one in the 19. Could that one be standing for the one God? And the 9, which is the number of completion, that if a man is going to attain to perfection, that man has to be completed. But the only one that can complete a man and make a man to attain to perfection is the God of the man who is perfect. Could the God be generating himself through that one man? As this secret coding of 19 is before us. We don't have time to go into it all now, but when we look at the 19 and we see that the birth of Jesus comes about in the 19th surah of the Holy Quran, we see that a man is being made to be perfected, but the 76th surah says the man, that a time came over man when he was nothing to speak of. But no matter what state or condition he is in, God is able first to claim him. And then when he claims him, he shows the world that he has the power to retrieve him. And then after retrieving him, he has now demonstrated that he has the power to restore him and elevate him and exalt him and enlighten him and empower him. And we know that because when we came in touch with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, a man so strong in the mind of God and so strong in his law and his will, there was enough radiating from this man that literally could set the black man on fire. Look at what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan says about July the 4th, 1930, because the 19 is the surah of the Quran called Maryam, but the 30 of surah is called the Romans. The Jesus in the scripture, particularly in the Bible, he's pictured as coming up out of Roman occupation. The Romans are conquerors. They were known as conquerors. The world at that time was known to be Rome. And the Jesus is depicted as coming up, doing his work while the power of Rome was over Judea, over Samaria, over this land. When you multiply, my God, because the Romans didn't all die. From what we know, the Romans did not become extinct. So if the Romans didn't die off and extinct, where are the Romans? Did they not change their name from Roman to Italian? And even though Columbus is said to be the discoverer of this land, an Italian, we could say a Roman explorer, Amerigo Vespucci, came to this land here. And so you celebrate Columbus Day, but the land is not named Columbus. The land is named after Amerigo, America, a modern day Roman Empire. If you take the 19 and the 30, as our dear Mother Tanetta Muhammad, may Allah always be pleased with her, said you multiply the 19 times the 30, you get 570. And it was 570 AD that Muhammad was born. My God, so much ties into these three men that you see pictured before you. And the 4th of July, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says that Marie, parentheses, Poole Muhammad, gave birth to a noble Black man who was given a great light by his teacher, Master Fard Muhammad, so that a light would be lifted up in the midst of gross darkness. That light is the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which I am sharing with you right now. It shows the teacher of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad reading the Holy Quran. He didn't reveal it, but he's reading it. He's a master because he can handle, operate, and make function according to his own desire, the way we understand it, that which he did not create, but it makes him a master. You know, I've always said that if I'm in a desert and I'm dying for water, and water will save my life, and you have a container that has the water in it, and you provide me with the water, and I live as a result of drinking the water, did the container save my life, or did the water save my life? And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said of this man, Allah came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever. But we have to say that even though the water saved my life, if it had not been for what the water was contained in, I never could have got the water. And so we are thankful that Allah is in his person. We are thankful that he has come to befriend us, and his friendship is demonstrated by taking one from amongst us and raising him up in strong law. The scriptures teach us that the Son of Man, according to Jesus, was seen as a light shining from the east even unto the west. This man came from the east. The Son of Man is not described as coming with a committee. He's not coming with a crowd. He's coming by himself. And Jesus saw him as a light shining from the east even unto the west. And certainly in the west, there was gross darkness, because in the west, no prophet of God had ever been sent. In the west, no messenger of God had ever been raised. In the west, slavery existed. In the west, evil practices existed. More was being done here in the United States of America than many places we read of in the Bible and Quran, where Allah had decided that a messenger was necessary or a prophet was necessary. And so we see in America the necessity. And I think that when people examine the country and examine their faith and their books of scripture, they will agree with us in the nation. They will agree with the Honorable Louis Farrakhan that a messenger is needed, that an apostle of God is needed, that a prophet is needed, but we're not in the time of prophets. We're not in the time of people trying to predict. We're in the time of fulfillment of the prophets who have come before us, especially in this 6,000 year period. And so they will agree that certainly such a man is needed in the land. But the problem is, it's a Black man. And because of the way we have been profiled, because of the station that we hold, because of the way that other people in this land have been made to look on us, they can't even accept the truth. They can't receive the guidance in everything because of the color of one's skin. You hear Black folks talking about white privilege, and certainly some white folks are responding, and they're starting to say, you know, what is this white privilege when I had to work hard in school to get my learning, to have my profession. I had to work hard to build my business from the ground up. We don't deny that because you're white, you didn't work hard. We don't deny that you didn't work hard in school because you're white. And so when you go to work your business and you go to get a loan from the bank, if you're turned down most likely because there's something faulty in the application that you have submitted. When you are turned down for employment, maybe they don't like the personality, maybe you don't have the credentials that satisfy the position that they want filled. But when a Black person shows a good business plan, when a Black person shows that they have the acumen to run a business, when a Black person goes to school and achieves and gets the degrees and applies for the position and has the requirements to satisfy the position, they're not turned down because of something that's on the application. They're turned down because of the color of their skin. And when the color of your skin becomes the barrier, and those that don't have color but are white, they don't have that barrier, there you have white privilege operating at its best. We are thankful to the Honorable Louis Farrakhan for what we are given from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I really want us to look at some of his words that go on about the seal. The teacher, Master Fard Muhammad, so that a light would be lifted up in the midst of gross darkness. He said, the light is the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which I'm sharing with you right now. We have the torchlight. America is being challenged to take the bushel basket off of the light. You put a bushel basket over the light when you try to show the Nation of Islam, when you try to show the eternal leader of the Nation of Islam, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, of somehow teaching racism in reverse, as if that could be done. When you paint the Nation of Islam in a certain light, and we intend to lift our truth and position, we intend to show our program because we know that it can bring about the healing in the land, but we're going to have to receive it. And to reject something that's designed to free you, to reject something that's designed to bring you a measure of justice, to reject something that can offer you equality of opportunity within your own setting, Black folks, is to say that even though it's Independence Day, we could still be acting like a 21st century slave. Black America has to have a language of self-determination and a self-determined will. I was looking at some of the things that came up in, I want to show you something down here of what, these are two terms that we should look at now, family, because so much is in the mind. We are learning that words are seeds. We are learning that when we are feeding on words, that is the mind eats these words. And just like we eat food, and food is broken down and goes to our innermost parts, and the body extracts from the nutrients that are stored up in the food, the medicines that are stored up in the food, so that the body can receive them and make use of them in its various functions in the body, all for one common purpose. Well, so it is when we feed on words. And if you feed on garbage, if you feed on words that are not designed to be in harmony with the state of truth that your mind was created in. Even as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said these words, that the planets were made at right angles. If we stopped right there, can we deny it? The planets have been out there for trillions of years, and they've not had one accident yet. The planets have not collided with each other. They each have their own rotation. They each have their own revolution that they make, carving a path out in space, and based on the path that the planet has carved out, it determines the life form on that planet. So whatever path you take in life, it shapes your life. And it starts by shaping your life, by shaping your mind. And your mind is being shaped on what's coming into it. Read, the Quran said, read in the name of thy Lord, because reading is at the root of education. And when you read the right words and feed on it, if it's truth, if it's right guidance, then the mind begins to take form and shape. And that mind taking form and shape, it has an effect on the brain cells of the body, which is a electrical repository. And that affects all the cells that are in the body, and the cells are traveling at a rate of speed found to be identical to the rate of speed of the sun that gives the planets their motion. And of course, for Earth, it's 93 million miles from the sun. And so it takes the sun's light 8 minutes and 20 seconds or 500 seconds to make a complete circuit and journey to the earth and back to the sun. And so it is with the blood in the body. It takes it 500 seconds to travel through the human form. And so when the cells are traveling in the blood, coming across the brain, picking up the energy that is in that mind, when that mind is being fed truth, when it's being fed right guidance, when it's being fed things that are positive for it, it charges the cells up with that positive charge. As it goes back through the body begins to react to the quality of the thoughts that are in the mind. Jesus said, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Well, we know the heart that's beating in the chest can't think. He's looking at the core of the mind and the bloodstream of a man's thoughts. And when those thoughts charge the cells of the body itself takes on a language. And you can see the language in a man and a woman's face when their mind is charged up with positive thoughts and good news. And what we have to find, Black people, is that which charges us up about ourselves, because living in this land, it has debilitated us so that we are in desperate need of real repair at every level you can think of. These are words that we define to consider from our own study in the classroom of God with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan at the head. Look at the superiority complex, the one on the bottom at first. In psychiatry, the superiority complex is the exaggerated feeling of being better than those or above others. Have you seen anyone like that? Do you know anyone like that? Are you like that? Do you have a feeling that you're better or above others? When you're walking down the street and you have commanded a salary at 6 figures or better, and you see some man disheveled, soiled, homeless, trying to find a place to sleep between a couple of buildings, do you look at that person? And I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but do you just look at him and say, I'm better than him? You might be in a better situation. I may be in a better situation and position. But if that man were given some of the things that we have received, to be wherever we are in life or think we are in life, that man could be just as good and maybe even better. But when you have an exaggerated feeling of being better than or above others, not yielding or susceptible, you don't even want to hear it. You're not trying to hear it. And so if the color of your skin is dark, I don't care if you got the perfect answer, I'm going to always see it wrongly. You know, if you get this way, it can damage the perception that you have, because just because you think that doesn't mean it is that. Look at what superiority complex does. It's showing a consciousness of being above the average in place, the average in position, the average in excellence. I'm above you in merit. I'm above you in intelligence. I'm above you in station, rank, and degree, etc. Often the mark of an overly assertive personality. Certainly people have to be assertive to carry themselves forward and advance themselves in life. You can't just sit in atrophy and expect things to fall out of the sky for you. You've got to assert yourself. You have to get up. But when you're overly assertive in your personality, you just override people. Dr. King put it in a way, you have everything to teach others, but nothing to learn from them. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan just offers such a more excellent leadership in training us how to be balanced in this particular area, because a superior position doesn't mean you're in a superior condition. In the world we live in today, it's the moral superior who will always come out on top, because that's what comes from God. To be intelligent and immoral with your intelligence is really to be a devil in human form. Did you know that to be better is at the root of Satan? In the Holy Quran, the book of scripture of the Muslims, Allah makes a man. It could be a man that's described in the 76th surah, that a time came over that man when he was nothing to speak of. And because of him being nothing to speak of, because of him being neglected, because of him being mistaught, because of him being misguided, and he's nothing to speak of, Allah takes a man who was created out of black mud. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that the creation out of black mud is the sperm of the Black nation. But God's not finished there, because just being created is one thing. We have to be taught. We have to be properly orientated. We can't just stay eating and sleeping and having sex and then going back to eating and sleeping and having sex. That's no way to live. The beasts of the field do that. Wild beasts do that. In order to come into our humanity, we need a moral code. We need a sense of what's right and what's wrong, what's just and what's unjust, even what's real and unreal, because it's unjust to give somebody an unreal existence, calling that reality. Well, Satan, Iblis, tells God, I'm not submitting to no man that you made. But God said, after I'm completed him, once I put my spirit in him, once I fashioned him into shape, I didn't make an ordinary fella to tell you to submit and listen to him. But Iblis has a mind. He says, I won't submit. And so Allah asked Iblis, what hindered you from obeying my command? Because the man that I made, he didn't command you. I'm the one that made him. I commanded you. What hindered you from obeying my command? And he said, I'm better than him. So you see, at the root of Satan is to think you're better. And so when Allah says, well, then get thee from this state that you're in, well, he's angry now. So he tells Allah, first he makes a request to make sure he can be protected, because he's about to go off on the God. He says, respite me to the day that they're raised. So there's a day coming where somebody have to be raised. If you got to be raised, family, that means that you are in a lower state now and you got to be elevated. Does that make sense? You know, and he said, if you just respite me, in other words, don't destroy me. Don't check me. Give me a free hand. And then the day that you raise them, then I understand that me and all my wiles and devilishment will come into check. Well, Allah says, well, surely you are the respited one. Well, once he knew that the deal had been made that he would be respited, well, you know, he don't see all of God's plan. So he tells God, surely I'll come from before them, from behind them, from their left and from their right. I'm going to get them wherever I find them. I'll get them in education. I'll teach them the wrong thing about themselves. I'll get them in politics. I'll get them when it comes to employment or their economic situation. He said, I'll even come on thy straight path. I'm coming right up in religion and do what I can to deceive them. And Allah tells them, then you go ahead and I'll fill hell with you all if they want to deviate and come with you and your mindset. Well, see, that satanic mindset now is a superior mindset. He first thinks he's better than the man God is making. In the Bible, as we see station, rank, and degree, he says in the book of, I believe it's Isaiah, the 14th chapter, I will raise myself even above the Most High. See, and I'll raise my throne against the stars of God. I'm gonna come up with a religion, and I'm gonna challenge the high wise people in the Muslim world. I'll raise my throne against the stars of God. Highly educated men are called stars. Well, that's what a superiority complex can do. It makes you not see yourself. And of course, you're blind to yourself, you're blind to others. We were always taught, get the knowledge of self and the knowledge of others. First, let me give you something to help you see yourself. Then let me give you something to help you to see others, so you don't get in this state of mind by looking at yourself, and then you end up with a superiority complex yourself. Then you have an inferiority complex. In psychiatry, that's an intense feeling of inferiority. That's producing a personality that's characterized by extreme reticence now. You're about afraid to do anything, because at the base of it, family, we've been taught that we can achieve so little, if anything, that we're about afraid to. And believe me, things have been done in this land to break the spirit of a moose, even. We built nearly 100 towns after slavery, and you got to realize that the people that built those towns weren't as literate as we are today. We're resilient people. They focus on Tulsa in 1921 and its 100-year anniversary of them burning it down. But look how they have beat us down and make you feel like all you do is tear up your community and you burn it and loot it and that when you're mad. Well, they burned and looted all of our towns. And we had never looted anything in this land. If looting came from anywhere, it came from our oppressors first. As a result of overcompensation sometimes, then we have extreme aggressiveness to cover for a lack of self-esteem, feelings of inadequacy, and a lack even of self-confidence. These two terms will be following us the next 2 weeks as we get ready to go down. And of course, we don't want to keep you all Sunday. We're going to be closing momentarily. But look at what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan says as we deal with the inferiority complex. He first says, a prevailing attitude among whites says that Black people are inferior, doomed to be servants of theirs. And from that attitude, there is a belief system. Once somebody's got the attitude, they start sharing that attitude with others, and it trains others how to look at a certain social group. From that attitude, there's a belief system. What do you say in that belief system? I believe that God created them to serve us. I believe that I am superior. And based upon these beliefs, a constitution is developed that embodies those beliefs. I believe they are subhuman. So when I write the Constitution, I'm codifying my belief into a law that says they are only 3/5 of a person. Now, of course, there's a whole history behind that too, because the Southern states wanted to be counted in a way that they could have certainly enough electoral college votes. The so-called Negro was said to be their property, but guess what? They didn't want to pay property tax. So they allowed these people to be somewhat human, and they called us from a subhuman level, and it's only dealing with Black folks. Don't say that they counted all these other people as 3/5. That is not true. Black people were the ones counted as 3/5 of a person. And it was said, once we codify them as 3/5 of a human being, there in the article of the Constitution, it will forever determine the way in which we deal with them. You know, so we have a movement, whether we call it the human rights movement, whether we call it the civil rights movement, but too much of it is determined on how white folks feel about us and how we can get them to change their mind, how they feel about us. And so that family could literally have white folks celebrating the 4th of July because 1776, the English are not telling them what to do. Since 1776, the English are not taxing them. Since 1776, they don't go spend all their money with the English and have no money for themselves in their own community. Since 1776, they wrote a Declaration of Independence, and they must have meant it. And it's more separating them from the English than the Atlantic Ocean. Sometimes they've even clashed. Look what the Holy Quran says here. And certainly we have created hell for many of the jinn and the men. They have hearts wherewith they understand not, and they have eyes wherewith they see not, and they have ears wherewith they hear not. They are as cattle, nay, they are more astray. They are the heedless ones. The Quran says this is talking about individuals now who have decided not to try to understand. Have you seen folks like that? They have just almost determined not to listen to anyone that advises them to a truth. No one wants their current set of beliefs disturbed, and certainly not those who are in rulership that profit greatly from the misguidance of masses of the people. And that's why a voice like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's can be so hated in the land, and of course, loved greatly in the land by those who have been deceived, who are being manipulated, and who desperately want to come out from that. I read once where a man said, if we can control what the people believe, certainly then our control over there would be complete. And then there are many things that others in America have been saying that we have to take note of over the years, but we notice that there are a lot of people now coming to consciousness, and we see the struggle of our people, no matter what profession they are in, struggling for the truth. And so there are those in the land that are trying to prevent you from letting anyone with light teach you about anything. They're threatening your economic condition. They're threatening even your life. If you, who they see as a money maker for them, are listening to voices of people that may be teaching you how to take some of your wealth and marry it with wisdom, so that your wealth can grow, rather than seeing our wealth diminish in the land the way we are, that we hope to do in the weeks to come. But you know, you should be able to see, but when the mind has not matured, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us that lack of maturity makes you look at the same thing a wise person is looking at, but you don't see the same thing that the wise person sees. When we're little children, they write something on the bottles or the containers of strong compounds generally used to clean your clothes or areas of your house. And so you'll see in a little box, keep away from children. Don't let them come near it. Why? Because their minds haven't matured. And if the children get it, they may ingest some of it. And of course, it could turn out to be fatal. So they don't even tell you, teach your children not to go near it. Teach your children not to try to eat it. The mind is too immature right now. If the children get a hold of it, it's more than likely that they are going to taste it, that they are going to have it in their hands in that. So the warning is not there for the children to read. The warning is for the adult to read who purchased the compounds. Keep it away from children. When a social group has not matured and grown up socially, certainly we have members that have shown great brilliance. Certainly we have people among our own people that have shown great responsibility as parents, shown great responsibility as members of the community, and shown great responsibility in the world of commerce and government. But socially, you can't say that we have grown up where we have lifted ourselves together as a social group. Anytime everybody else can be making money off of us and we don't make any really for ourselves, anytime we have to go somewhere else to someone else outside of our social group just for the essentials of life, you can't say that we have grown up. You can't say that collectively we have matured. Shouldn't there be things in the community that we should keep away from, or that they should keep away from us? But yet we have been taking those things. And so we have suffered greatly as a result of all of these things. Look what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says. He says, at the same time that that attitude of white superiority hardened into beliefs that grew into laws, the Caucasian people at the same time, family, were producing an attitude in Black people toward ourselves. What was that attitude, he said? That we are the N-word. I won't say it, but you know what it is. I believe the N-word will never be nothing. Have you ever heard us say that about one and the other? And he said, out of this attitude grew a system of belief. And man, when you start believing it, then all you have to do is be Black and go to someone and say, why don't some of us get together? I noticed that, Black women, we love you so much. You have done so much for us as men. It is why the Honorable Louis Farrakhan asked Black women to stay back and let the man stand up in October 16, 1995. And men did a great job of organizing to meet the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan there on the mall in Washington, D.C. for the Million Man March. But it was a great moment. And it was a great moment for the members of the human family because we were watched all over the globe. It is because our woman has done so much. And I often use the example, how many of our women turn around and say to us as husbands, boyfriends, or what have you, even brothers and fathers, why don't you and some of the guys get together and start a bank? Why don't some of you all just get together and start your own supermarket? Set up your own banking system, set up your own whatever, fill in the blank. And you know why? Because deep in our belief system, our women know we don't think that big. Oh, I know I'm in a lot of trouble now, but I've already qualified it. We do have individual members that stretch out, but collectively as a group, we're not made to see ourselves in that greater light. We're always thinking that banking is left to someone else, that providing for us in the many ways of the essentials of life is left to someone else. It started with an attitude. It's hardened into a belief system. And so the minister says, out of this attitude grew a system of belief, and from that, a set of actions. And it is an unwritten law that Black people disrespect and destroy one another. So these are some of the harder truths that I had to share today. And before we go, just look at what happened. In 1967, when riots broke out, the president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, he commissioned the Kerner Commission to study for civil unrest and these social relationships that were in a meltdown by this time in many of the cities across America, and especially after the assassination of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But the Kerner Commission came up with a report, and Lyndon Baines Johnson was a little disappointed. And he actually spent time avoiding the press because they too had read, and I only have here some of the summary of the Kerner Commission report from in 1968. Look what they said. On July 28th, 1967, the President of the United States established this commission and directed us to answer three basic questions. What happened? Why did it happen? And what can be done to prevent it from happening again? This is our basic conclusion. Our nation is moving toward two societies, one black, one white, separate and unequal. Reaction to last summer's disorders has quickened the movement and deepened the division. Discrimination and segregation have long permeated much of American life. They now threaten the future of every American. Just look at that, discrimination and segregation and what they have done. Segregation, unlike separation, is when you are separated in body only, but someone else is controlling your existence, even though they don't live there. And segregation has permeated much of American life for the so-called Negro. And now the Kerner Commission in 1968 is saying that it's threatening the future of every American if something isn't done about it. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about our unity being more powerful than these bombs. Well, they were calling in the 60s, they were calling the Black community a powder keg. And this gunpowder keg just needed a wick, one little incident to light it off, and the country would explode. Segregation put great damage on our life. I think between 1942 and 1950, Black psychologists Kenneth Clark and Mamie Clark came up with an experiment, and that experiment became more known to us when the NAACP's Thurgood Marshall was fighting the Brown versus Board of Education at the Supreme Court level. From what we learned about Mr. Marshall, he was such a skilled attorney, he set cases up to lose at the local and the appellate level so that he could get it to the Supreme Court to fight to make change nationwide. Mr. Marshall then trying to convince these 9 justices about segregation in public school life and its damaging effects, he lifted the experiments of Kenneth and Mamie Clark, where Black dolls and white dolls were used, and Black girls were brought up to see which one they preferred. And to the girl, not one Black girl, as I understand it, selected a doll that looked like them. They all selected white dolls. They saw the Black dolls as evil. And Mr. Marshall was able to successfully make his case that these are the scars of segregated living. Segregation and poverty have created in the racial ghetto, look at this, a destructive environment, totally unknown to most white Americans. When white Americans say, why are you tearing down your own community? You got to understand that the rage that comes up out of whatever incident like that of George Floyd being killed mercilessly there in Minneapolis, and the world was able to see a knee on his neck for nearly 9 minutes. Well, they don't see themselves as tearing down their own community because they don't own anything in it. Every store is owned by somebody that's not a member of that community. Every institution that is set up is run by somebody else other than the people that live in that community. You have Black folks living together in a vicinity. But can we say it's really a community where cohesiveness is absent, where the spirit of self-determination is absent, where you're living in a vicinity under someone else's determination? It's segregated living. We're actually colonized in the 21st century. So something destructive comes up, and white Americans can't understand this. What white Americans have never fully understood, the Kerner Commission report said, but what the Negro can never forget is that white society is deeply implicated in the ghetto. White institutions created it, white institutions maintain it, and white society condones it. You know, certainly people were offended when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the colored man was the white man, the skunk of the planet Earth. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan told us he wasn't trying to be derogatory. A skunk is probably one of the only creatures whose presence is not necessary for you to understand that he's been there. He leaves an odor that has you actually looking for him as soon as you pick up the smell, but he's long gone. He can even be miles gone, but the stench that comes from the skunk. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is actually showing us a work that's being done in our communities. We're only looking at ourselves face to face, but the evil that's being done and the manipulations and the machinations that are going on about us, the folks aren't even there in the community, but yet we are suffering from it. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan said racism is the result of white supremacy as an ideology. Those poisoned by this ideology and philosophy can never give freedom, justice, and equality or human rights to those who are non-white. You know, people don't understand that when Constantine became emperor of Rome, when he had this vision of the cross superimposed now, it's in the light of the sun, superimposed on the sword and the shield. Constantine said the words, "In this sign we conquer." Well, you know, they weren't necessarily conquering with love, certainly not the love of Jesus Christ, but they were using his name to bring conquering and to bring people under that faith. But under that faith, they weren't saved just because they were being called Christian, because that Christianity was poisoned with an imperialist idea. You have the result of supremacy in it. There's more to talk about in that in the weeks to come. In truth, the minister says, they can never give true freedom, justice, and equality even to those who are white. The poor white in this country, they're being made so much not to see what's causing the unending, uninterrupted poverty that they're living in. But the minister goes on and says, as a philosophy, white supremacy must die in order for the principles of freedom, justice, and equality to live. And the last thing we have is him calling on Black America. Because we lack self-esteem and we lack self-worth, we have developed an unwritten law that says if you get rid of a member of your own group, you have done nothing wrong. You have done something good in getting rid of the object of disapproval. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said, stands between the two attitudes, superiority and inferiority. He must expose the condition for what it is, and then he has to break up the mental attitudes that brought that condition about. Family, as we see the murder spike in the major cities across America, namely among our own members, Black America must understand that the language that we have is a language that has an impediment in the tongue. What do we mean? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about an impediment when your language has the failure to bring what is called subject-verb agreement. In short, we cannot demand change. Black people, in the truest sense of the word, and I know we're sincere about wanting social change. I know that we're sincere about wanting a change in the horrible conditions that are so recurring that we find ourselves. But we cannot demand change and refuse to change. The Holy Quran talks about it, that surely Allah changes not the condition of a people till they first change it themselves. You change your own condition by changing yourself. We know that a Mahdi has come because the job description of the Mahdi is to kill the swine. The people that are in this country now claiming Islam that are not eating the flesh of the swine, you haven't given up the flesh of the swine because somebody came over and sat you down and taught you Islam. You've given up the flesh of the swine because Master Fard Muhammad raised the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and that spread all across this land. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad started in the 30s, calling us from the flesh of the swine. He started in the 30s calling us the black man of Asia. In the 30s, black was an unacceptable term to us because we had been made to feel so bad about ourselves. African was a bad term for us. And to call us a black African, you could be almost on fighting terms. But all the while, we were demanding change, but we didn't want to change. You got to change the way you see yourself. You got to change the way you feel about yourself. And we have to change the way we feel about one and the other. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad offered to us a savior. And we got a savior today in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad offered us that which would give us the power, his life-giving teaching to give up the swine. How do I know that the appetite for the swine flesh has been killed? Because many have come to the life-giving teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and now they have gone away from him. Many have come over my 40 years of being with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and many have gone away from him. Some have gone back to cigarettes. Some have gone back to drugs. Some have gone back to some form of riotous living, but none of them have gone back to eating the flesh of the swine. How is it that the time you spent under the voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Allah's preacher of freedom, justice, and equality today, how is it that you gave up the swine? You had the power to give it up, and you never went back to it. The appetite was absolutely killed from the word that came from Master Fard Muhammad. So we can't talk freedom, we can't talk justice, and act like a slave. Family, we hope to be with you again next Sunday. We thank the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We're calling on you to go to mosque12.org and donate and help Mosque number 12 as we are in our reopening, and our FOI are trying to be on the streets to help our people to come out of this sick pattern of murdering each other every single night in the city of Philadelphia. I thank you so much. I thank the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for this golden opportunity. I thank the laborers and the believers of Muhammad Mosque number 12 and throughout the Delaware Valley. Assalamu alaikum.